Hi, if you're new here, my name is Lisa and I'm an edtech entrepreneur. My business made 6 figures in revenue last year. I won first place and was accepted into an Australian startup accelerator, and I've done a TED Talk as a result. And at risk of sounding completely up myself, I wanted to get those credentials in and out of the way because I feel incredibly awkward talking about my accomplishments and I often feel like an imposter, and even though I've tried many a time to conquer it by now, I haven't, and suddenly I'm 30. So I wanted to share a snapshot into my journey so far. I'm in my 5th year of business now, so I've learned some handy and helpful tips that I would love to share with you so that you can be successful in your business venture as well. In this video, I'll give you actionable advice you can implement, and I'll use example businesses from the fields of products, so if you're starting an online store, services, like if you're starting a freelancing career, and apps as well. So hopefully the advice following will suit your area of interest. I'll timestamp each of these pieces of advice so you can skip ahead if you want to, and I hope the following can help you manage your time wisely, mitigate risk, and start off on the right foot so that you'll be successful in the years to come. 1. Don't be married to your idea. People who start businesses are optimists. We see a gap in the market, something that's missing, and we want to bring our idea to fruition because we think others will love it too. Right? No. If you already know this answer, then feel free to skip ahead to the next point. But if you're not sure exactly why, then let me explain. Just because you have an amazing idea, unfortunately, you don't know how the market is going to respond to it. You might be saying, Lisa honey, like don't worry. My friends and family say this is an amazing idea. I've already got feedback. I'm good to go. What has been drilled into me time and time again by CEOs, investors, and mentors is that as much as we love these people, unfortunately, they're probably not going to be part of your target audience, so they don't count. They love you and they're going to give you a biased view about your idea, just like how you have a biased view on your own idea. Starting a business is risky. After all, 60% of small Australian businesses stop their operation within the first 3 years of their business. And in America, 1 in 5 businesses fail within a year, and only 50% survive their 5th year in business. The odds are stacked against us, hey? If you plan to start a business where you're going to invest money in products, then this is a financial risk you're going to have to bear up front, whether it's purchasing stock, unless you're doing drop shipping, or even more dire and costly, an app. Even if you are doing drop shipping or you're starting a business offering your services, you're probably going to want to create a website, and that in itself takes time. Your time is your most valuable asset. After all, without that time, you wouldn't have the chance to start this business. So you want to focus on investing your time in creating a business that's going to resonate with people and ultimately sell to these people. In all of these scenarios mentioned, it is therefore in your best interest to mitigate risk as much as possible. By not being married to your idea, you give yourself time to move, room to be more objective, if that's even possible. And that means truly aligning your product or service with a paying customer, not just what you want. So how do you do that? By learning from your target customers. The real test is speaking to a stranger, testing your riskiest assumptions about your business, and getting confirmation from them that your idea is worth pursuing. 2. Have real conversations with your potential customers. And when I say getting confirmation from them that your idea is worth pursuing, it doesn't mean that you should go up to them and try to hard sell them your product or service. This is something you can do at a later stage if this hard selling is up your alley, but your main goal here is to learn. In other words, this is market research. There are a few ways for you to do market research apparently. Online surveys, telephone polling, and mailed questionnaires. Yeah, back in the 90s. And personal interviews. Don't bother with the first 3. Why, might you ask? It's because you're not going to get the quality data that you need. The issue with this type of research is that A, you get limited feedback. Whether it be a multiple choice answer, a yes or no answer, you're already limiting the possible range of answers to your question, meaning that your data probably isn't going to be as informative as it could be. Remember, at this stage, you're just trying to learn as much as possible about your target customers. You don't want to accidentally miss out on a vital piece of information that could completely change how you sell your product or service by pre-selecting their possible answers. And B, qualitative information like surveys and questionnaires are usually best for a large number of respondents, i.e. if you've got a massive business and it's likely that you just haven't reached this level yet. What this means is that the few responses that you are going to get probably aren't going to be that helpful in getting you the information you need. This could potentially be a waste of time and effort. This means that we'll want to focus on qualitative information, i.e. having real conversations with potential customers. I know this probably means getting out of your comfort zone, putting yourself out there, talking to strangers, and being a good interviewer is a whole skill in itself. But it's my personal opinion that doing interviews are worth their weight in gold. And the time that you spend on these interviews is going to be so much more productive than if you're just chucking a few surveys and questionnaires out there. Conducting interviews and learning from them has been a fundamental part in my business growth. And I can definitely tell you that without them, I would not be here. I would not be where I am today with the app I have serving thousands of students if it were to be shaped by my own limited worldview. Before I move on to my next point, I just wanted to add that, of course, there's always going to be a place for quantitative information like surveys and questionnaires. But when you first start, you want to test your riskiest assumptions, and these multiple choice questions, these yes/no answers, they're just not going to shine a light on these assumptions as you need. So that leads us to number 3, how to be a good interviewer. Let's say you're an entrepreneur who wants to start an online course helping people transition into a productive and healthy work from home lifestyle. Maybe you experienced these problems yourself firsthand when you moved from the corporate world into a work from home lifestyle because of COVID. You found yourself distracted, it was hard for you to separate work from home because you're always in the same space, and you found it isolating because you weren't able to mingle with your team members as you would usually at work. You solved your own problems by developing great habits, and you really want to share your learnings with other people and culminate all of this knowledge into an online course so that other people who experience this problem can learn from your own experiences too. Remember, you're here to test your riskiest assumptions, and that's whether people experience this problem too, and are they willing to pay for something to solve it. To do this, you want to talk to 5 to 10 target customers. These are people in the demographic or interest groups that you think you're going to sell to, and maybe in this case, that's other people working in corporate, and ask them to spare 20 minutes of their time to chat with you about the problem that you're trying to solve. You might think that a lot of people will say no, and people will say no, but there are a lot of people out there who will also say yes, because they're happy to talk about their experiences, especially if you're trying to solve a problem that they too have come across. You can do this over the phone or online, but it's always best in person so that you can see their subtle body language reactions. As I said before, interviewing is a skill. I've read both Sprint by Jake Knapp and Running Lean by Ash Moore more times than I can count. I find myself often returning to these books to glean new pieces of information, things that I've missed in previous rounds of reading that can help me interview better. Here are some experts on how you can conduct your interview based on Running Lean, just to give you an idea. So you start off with an introduction. You might say something like, "Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today. I'm currently working on creating an online course for people who want to work productively at home. But before getting too far ahead of myself, I wanted to make sure other people who work from home share these problems and see whether this is an online course worth building." Then you'd go on to focus on collecting demographics. Here you'd say something like, "Before we go on to the problems, I'd like to learn a little about you." And some questions you might ask are, what work do you do? How often do you work from home? How old are you? How many others work from home in your household? These are just questions that I've come up with for the scenario of if you wanted to create an online course for people transitioning into a working from home lifestyle. These questions help you collect basic demographics, but more importantly, they help you segment your audience. In other words, what smaller subset of your corporate audience could you target? This is so that when you go to advertise your product, you're really resonating with the right people rather than having a diluted message that applies to everyone. I'll come back to this one in a second. Then comes the juicy part. You tell your story. And this is where you mention the pains you've had working from home, how no one's ever been taught how to work from home, how to achieve that work-life balance when you're constantly in the same space. And then you ask them, does this resonate with you? Notice how this is an open-ended question, and that's to encourage these people to talk about their own experiences, rather than asking them a closed question that requires a yes/no answer. Kind of like those surveys we talked about before. You might find that they say yes, and it does resonate with them, and that they found a solution that you hadn't even considered, and maybe, potentially you can take this answer into your online course as another possible solution you could teach others. Or they might say no, doesn't resonate with them, and that's okay. Remember, you're still learning. Think about what could disqualify them from your target customers. Maybe you realize that people with kids at home just aren't that interested in your solution because they just don't have time to set aside to do an online course on top of managing their kids. Managing kids. That really shows my worldview about kids. That could mean that you start refining your audience from those who work in corporate, but mainly between the ages of 20 to 30. Or it could mean that you stumble upon an even bigger solution that might be more interesting for you to solve. How to give parents more time. Here, you're already starting to segment your audience. How you speak to 20 to 30-year-olds and how you market and sell to them is going to be very different from how you talk to 30 to 40-year-olds and even 40 to 50-year-olds. Already, you're creating a better business because you're starting to understand your target audience. There's definitely way more to this interview process, so I recommend you reading Running Lean if you're interested. Hopefully I've been able to show you here why interviews are tantamount for you to glean amazing pieces of information that will help you shape a better business. Let's move on to the next point. Listen to your customers and adapt your idea if needed. Because you're not married to it, remember? You've interviewed a few target customers and now you have more knowledge at your disposal to make more informed decisions. You might have learned that while a 20 to 30-year-old is more interested in self-improvement than a parent, and therefore they'd be willing to invest time in a course, they don't have the 6 hours to sit through your course, which is the length that you originally intended it to be. You might realize that having 15 minutes of digestible chunks sent to these people every single day for 2 weeks fits in better with their lifestyle and is more appealing than a 6-hour course. This knowledge is already paying you dividends because instead of you now diving into a 6-hour online course creation, that's 360 minutes, you're going to create 15 times 14 minute long teachings, 210 minutes. You're going to be charging the same price because you've tested this, and we won't go into the detail about pricing tests today. That could be another video in the future. So you've not only saved yourself time, you've actually improved the products into something that more people would be willing to buy, and therefore potentially increasing your profits. Of course, this is only just an example, but listening to your customers is a philosophy and mentality that you'll carry with you for life in business. When you listen to your customers, you create better products and services. And to show customers that we care and listen is incredibly powerful for your own business's branding. And that's what we really want in life, really, just to have somebody listen to us. And maybe that's why I'm creating this video, so that someone will listen to me. 5, create an MVP. Just because you've talked to customers doesn't mean that you've mitigated all risk. Let's keep using the example of the 15 minutes by 2 weeks online course. Rather than jumping straight into it, buying your whole video studio, an expensive camera, audio, taking 2 full weeks of your time to write up the content, and then who knows how much longer to actually film the actual video content, editing it, uploading it, then creating a website, then selling it. Test the market with an MVP first. MVP means minimum viable product, and you can do this with services or product. And even though it says product in the name, I think it's an approach to business that you can also use with services as well. It essentially means to create the smallest possible version of that business and seeing if it will sell. What this means is for the online course person, setting up a landing page and pushing it live and sending it to those few target customers who said yes, they'd love to see a solution, is a great way to test whether or not you have a problem that's worth solving because people are willing to buy it. This is the MVP. You haven't even created your product yet, but you're gonna see first if it's worth investing all those hours into creating it by firstly and almost foolproofing it by seeing if people are willing to spend. If they do, awesome, you know you've got something great going on. If they don't though, you'll need to keep learning. Don't run away from the people who didn't buy. Get in contact with them, chat with them, and find out why not so you can improve your product. You can do this if you're starting a shop as well. Rather than having an encyclopedia of products, perhaps you just test selling one product on pre-order. This gives you time to source the product if it does sell, and it means that you haven't even spent a cent on stock yet. In business, we often talk about the 80-20 rule, how 80% of your profits come from 20% of your products or services. So figure out, what's the first product I want to advertise? You might realize that this is enough to make a solid income and that you didn't even have to stress about sourcing all those products you wanted until later down the track when you expand your offering. 6, build, measure, and learn. I'm losing my voice. By now, if you know anything about startups, you might have noticed that a lot of these ideas come from lean methodology. You don't have to be trying to start a startup in order to adopt lean methodology. I think it's helpful for anybody who's starting a business. In my own words, and I wrote this down, because everyone explains lean differently. Running lean is a mentality. It's a methodical way of approaching business that's based on a build, measure, learn feedback loop. So let's say you've tested your MVP and you've achieved sales. Awesome! Now that you've got money in, it's time to start building that online course. How exciting! From here though, the learning doesn't end. That's why it's a feedback loop. It's a form of continuous improvement that's going to be built into the anatomy of your business. So ask yourself, what have customers been saying? What do they like? You should do more of it. Are they complaining? Complaints are the best because they tell you what needs to be fixed and how to make your business a better one. Are they requesting for other products in your online store? More features on your app? More service add-ons in your freelance business? If you're online, which almost everybody is these days, make sure you have Google Analytics set up. Google Analytics is an absolute beast of an engine, and if you don't have it, there's literally no excuse not to. Basically, Google Analytics helps you track very important metrics that help you grow a business. Number of website visitors, pages they visit, how long they stay on the page, and these are only the basics. You can set up goals, for example, how many people sign up to your mailing page on a certain page. Or you can also link up your e-commerce store as well, so you can see how many people abandoned your cart and the pages people visit before purchasing. Yeah, I know, it's creepy, but it's fantastic for business owners. As I mentioned, you should implement build, measure, and learn into the body and soul of your business. It should seep into all other aspects of business too, not just selling. For example, at my company, we not only look at some of those metrics that I mentioned before, but even with YouTube, when I push out a video, I'll measure the data, I'll learn from it, and I'll implement that learning into my next video. And lastly, 7, invest time in yourself. Because you are your only employee, your best ROI is to invest in your own growth. You're the only person in the world who cares about your business as much as you do. You're a one-person team, so investing in yourself is going to have a huge impact on your business. People pay professional development for their staff, so think of it as PD for yourself. At the beginning, you're going to be a jack of all trades. You most likely need to be your website designer, salesman, marketer, customer support, hype man, hype woman, psychologist. On those dark days where you just doubt yourself so hard, you wonder why you just don't follow your friends into the corporate world and just make bank. So there's gonna be a lot of learning to be done. Here are the most impactful books I've read in my first 3 years of business that have completely changed my worldview. For marketing, you've got Influence by Robert Cialdini, I don't know. In this book, he covers 6 principles of influence: reciprocity, consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity. Wait, that's not 6. Yes, it is. Okay, cool. Which help you shape your business and get people to say yes to your products or services. Growing a business, I'd recommend 4-Hour Workweek. You probably already know Tim Ferriss, but he talks about how he's able to achieve a 4-hour workweek through automation and outsourcing. This is how I'm able to work around 20 to 30 hours each week rather than the usual 60 to 80 hours that most entrepreneurs do. Does it mean that I'm probably growing my business a little bit slower than most people? Yeah, probably, but I prefer this work-life balance, and that's a whole other thing in itself. Finances, I'd recommend Rich Dad Poor Dad for understanding passive income. And for self-improvement, I'll just chuck in there Atomic Habits, Deep Work, and Power of Habit. maybe I can talk about all that stuff in another video. And of course, you can always grab onto free educational content online, like watching this video. If you've made it this far, please like this video if you found it valuable for you, and hit the subscribe button. I'm gonna do more videos like this, so I'd love for you to be a part of this community. I originally had 10 points, but then I kind of realized that this video would be way too long if it isn't long enough already. So I'm gonna leave it there for now. The main takeaway is that by onboarding some of these ideas, you won't be as emotionally attached to your idea and push or invest in an idea that nobody wants. Instead, you're going to reduce your risk through a methodical approach to continuously learn, measure, and learn again. This is a good way to help you understand your customers' pain points and create a business that's based on real problems and therefore real solutions that people are willing to pay for. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!